You don't notice the silence at first. That's what makes it dangerous. The engine hasn't started yet. The crew hasn't climbed in. And for a moment, it feels like nothing more than cold steel sitting in still air. But then your hand touches the surface, and something shifts, not around you, but inside you. Because this isn't just a tank, it's the first of many. And you won't leave them the same way you entered. You climb inside, and it immediately feels wrong. Too tight, too mechanical, like the machine is closing around you instead of carrying you. This is the early war, when everything is supposed to be fast, clean, unstoppable. The Panzer I hums to life beneath you with a nervous kind of energy, light and fragile in ways you don't want to acknowledge. At first, it feels like control. You move, and the world responds. Terrain bends under your tracks, but the illusion cracks almost immediately. Every distant explosion feels too close, every vibration too sharp. You don't realize it yet, but this is where doubt begins. The victories come too easily after that, and that's what makes them dangerous. You move through Poland, then France, upgrading from one machine to the next. Panzer II, then III. Each one louder, heavier, more convincing. The gun feels real now, the armor feels reassuring, and the radio fills with confidence that borders on certainty. You begin to believe the machine makes you untouchable, that speed and coordination are enough to outrun consequence. But the battlefield starts changing before you do, stretching wider, growing colder, becoming something that doesn't break the way it's supposed to. In the east, everything slows down. The mud grips your tracks like it's pulling you backward. The cold creeps into the metal until even the controls feel reluctant. You're inside a Panzer III again, but it doesn't feel the same anymore. Then you see it, a silhouette in the distance that doesn't make sense at first. You fire, expecting impact, expecting reaction, but nothing happens. The shell lands, and the tank just stays there. Then it moves. That's when the illusion shatters, because the T-34 doesn't retreat. It advances, and suddenly your machine feels smaller than it ever has. You upgrade again into the Panzer IV, and for a moment it feels like balance has been restored. The gun hits harder, the armor holds longer, and you begin engaging from distances that feel safer, more controlled. But the enemy adapts faster than your confidence can keep up. Their numbers grow, their tactics shift, and the same silhouette that once shocked you becomes routine, relentless, repeatable, impossible to fully suppress. You destroy one, then another appears. The ground fills with wreckage, and some of it is yours. You start noticing things you ignored before. Engines failing mid-advance, tracks snapping under pressure, supply lines thinning until every movement feels uncertain. You're no longer pushing forward. You're holding on to momentum that's starting to slip. Still, the orders don't change. Push forward. Always forward. So, you do, even as the ground beneath you begins to feel less like progress and more like something temporary, something that could disappear the moment you stop. Then they give you the Panther, and it feels like the answer to everything you feared. Sleek, powerful, engineered to defeat what once dominated you. The first time you command it, there's a quiet confidence, something sharper than before. The gun is precise, the armor angled, the design almost too perfect. For a moment, it feels like the war has shifted back into your control. But the cracks don't stay hidden for long. Mechanical failures creep in. Subtle at first, then unavoidable. Breakdowns, overheating, systems that fail not under enemy fire, but under their own complexity. You begin to understand something unsettling. Power means nothing without reliability. Still, when the Panther works, it's devastating. You destroy targets before they can respond. Dominate distances that once felt threatening. But the hesitation never leaves. Every time you push the machine harder, there's a question in the back of your mind. Will it hold, or will it fail you at the worst possible moment? And sometimes, it answers that question in ways you can't recover from. Then comes the Tiger, and everything changes again. It arrives with a presence so heavy, it feels like it reshapes the battlefield before you even move. The armor is immense, the gun unmatched, and for the first time in a long while, the enemy feels vulnerable again. You don't rush anymore, you dictate. Every movement is calculated, every shot final. For a moment, it feels absolute, like you've become something the battlefield itself has to accommodate. But the enemy stops engaging you directly, and that's where the shift begins. Aircraft appear more often, artillery finds you with unsettling precision, and the ground itself becomes a trap designed to slow you down. Because once you stop moving, you're no longer a threat, you're a target. The Tiger is powerful, but it's also heavy, slow to reposition, difficult to maintain. You begin to feel the weight not just of the machine, but of everything trying to bring it down. The war changes again, and this time, It's unmistakable. You're no longer advancing, you're reacting. Every mission feels defensive, every movement calculated to avoid being surrounded. The maps shrink, the pressure builds, and the enemy no longer needs to outrun you. They just need to outlast you. And they are. Then you're introduced to something even larger, the King Tiger. It doesn't feel like a tank, it feels like a fortress on tracks. The armor is thicker than anything you've known, the gun capable of destroying targets before they even realize you're there. On the surface, it feels like the ultimate answer, but you hesitate before stepping inside, because by now, you've learned something no one told you at the beginning. Every increase in power comes with a cost. Fuel becomes a constant concern, movement feels restricted, and every deployment starts to feel like a gamble, not just against the enemy, but against time itself. You move forward anyway, because that's what you've always done. Forward into uncertainty, forward into something that no longer feels like victory. And then, in the distance, you see something that doesn't react to your presence. Not fear, not hesitation, just inevitability. And this is where everything changes. It doesn't charge you, it doesn't fall back, it doesn't even hesitate. The shape in the distance moves with a kind of quiet certainty, as if the outcome has already been decided, and you're just arriving late to witness it. You adjust your aim, steady your breath, and for a brief moment, everything feels familiar again. The weight of the gun, the stillness before the shot, the illusion of control. You fire, expecting the same result you've relied on so many times before. But this time, the impact doesn't end it. And that's when you understand something you've been avoiding for far too long. The war has outgrown your machines. You push forward anyway, because stopping now feels more dangerous than continuing. The King Tiger roars beneath you, every movement deliberate, every turn carrying consequences you can no longer predict. You line up another shot and fire again. This time, it works. The enemy tank erupting into flame and twisted metal. For a split second, it feels like proof that nothing has really changed. But that feeling doesn't last, because another silhouette appears behind it, then another, each one arriving without urgency, without fear, as if they know something you don't. You're no longer controlling the fight, you're enduring it. Every target you destroy is replaced faster than you can process. Every position you take becomes exposed almost immediately. The battlefield doesn't feel like something you move through anymore. It feels like something closing in around you. Survival starts to replace strategy, and even that begins to feel uncertain. You begin to notice how often you're forced to stop, not by choice, but by limitation. Fuel runs low faster than expected, routes become unusable, bridges collapse under your weight, or are already destroyed before you arrive. Roads aren't just paths anymore, they're risks, watched and anticipated. Every attempt to move forward feels like stepping into something already prepared for you, and staying still feels worse, because stillness draws attention in ways movement once avoided. Then the sky starts to matter more than the ground. You hear it before you see it, the distant hum that grows sharper, heavier, more focused. Aircraft, not one or two, but enough that counting them becomes meaningless. You try to reposition, but the tank resists, not because it's broken, but because there's nowhere left to go that hasn't already been accounted for. The first strike lands close enough to shake everything, not destroying you, but reminding you that survival is no longer in your control. You move again, but this time, it's different. You're not advancing, you're avoiding. Every turn is reactive, every decision shaped by pressure instead of intention. The battlefield has become something systematic, something that tracks and predicts and adjusts. You're not facing individual enemies anymore. You're inside something larger, something that doesn't need to overpower you. It just needs to overwhelm you. And slowly, it does. The maps shrink. The open fields disappear, replaced by tighter spaces, forests, villages, places where visibility drops, but danger rises. Every corner feels like a commitment you can't undo. Every sound feels closer than it should be. And then, without warning, the machine hesitates. Not completely, not catastrophically, but just enough to matter. A delay in response. A fraction of a second where control slips. You push harder, expecting correction, but the hesitation lingers just long enough to expose you. The shot that hits you isn't the end, but it changes everything. The impact shakes the tank, disrupts the rhythm you've relied on, forces you to confront what you've been trying not to think about. Even this machine, the most powerful you've commanded, has limits. You return fire instinctively, destroying the threat in front of you, but the victory feels thinner than ever, because the damage doesn't disappear when the enemy does. You feel it in the way the turret turns, slower now, less certain, in the way the engine sounds, strained and uneven. in the way your decisions narrow instead of expand. You're no longer choosing the best option, you're choosing the least dangerous one, and even that starts to feel unreliable. Then the orders come in, and they don't sound like anything you've heard before. Not advance, not hold, withdraw. At first, it doesn't make sense. The word feels out of place, almost unreal. You've spent all this time moving forward, adapting, pushing through resistance. Even when things got worse, the direction never changed. But now, forward is no longer an option. You turn the King Tiger round, and the movement feels heavier than anything you've done before. Not physically, but mentally. This isn't a maneuver, it's a reversal, the kind you can't ignore or reinterpret. And once it starts, it doesn't stop. The retreat isn't clean or controlled. It's fragmented, pressured, constantly interrupted. You're not moving through empty space. You're moving through a battlefield that's already shifting against you. You pass wrecks along the way, and they don't feel distant anymore. Some of them are tanks you once commanded, machines that once felt unstoppable. Now they're abandoned, destroyed, left behind in places that no longer matter. Each one feels like a warning you didn't fully understand when it mattered. The King Tiger keeps moving, but it feels different now. Less like a weapon and more like something you're trying to preserve for as long as possible. Every kilometer adds strain, every turn demands more than it should. You start measuring distance differently, not in objectives, but in survival. How far can it go? How much longer will it hold together? How much of this machine is still functioning, and how much is just inertia? And then, without warning, it stops. Not violently, not dramatically, just stops. The engine cuts out, and the silence that follows feels heavier than any explosion. You try to restart it, forcing the controls, waiting for something, anything, to respond, but nothing does. The systems are still there, the structure intact, but the movement is gone. And this time, it isn't the enemy that stopped you. It's everything else. You sit there for a moment longer than you should, not because you're deciding what to do, but because you already know. The war didn't end in a single moment. It unraveled, slowly, relentlessly, until even the most powerful machines couldn't carry it forward anymore. You step out, and the world feels louder than before. Not with sound, but with absence. The absence of control, of certainty, of direction. Behind you, the King Tiger stands still. Not destroyed, not burning, just finished. And that's the part no one tells you at the beginning. It's not the battles or the machines that define the end. It's the moment when there's nothing left to command.